Between the wind-swept shores of the Caribbean and the shadowed coves of West Africa, an age emerged, not of kings and empires, but of outlaws, rebels, and rogue sailors. This was the Golden Age of piracy, but beneath the flags, the gunpowder, and the treasure maps, lay a world more complex than any legend. At the dawn of the 18th century, the Atlantic world was in flux. Colonial empires stretched greedily across the sea lanes. Spain, once dominant, faced increasing pressure from Britain, France, and the Dutch Republic. These empires poured ships into the Americas, hauling sugar, silver, spices, and slaves, creating not just wealth, but targets. In this crucible of imperial rivalry, thousands of seafarers found themselves out of work. Peace treaties disbanded privateer fleets. Warships returned to port. Yet many of these men, still skilled, still armed, turned their gaze toward opportunity on the high seas. Pirates were not born of chaos, they were forged in its margins. They gathered on islands like New Providence and Tortuga, forming outlaw communities where crews governed themselves. These were floating democracies with constitutions, elected leaders, and codes of conduct. In the absence of state authority, pirates crafted their own. The result was a maritime ecosystem unlike anything seen before, or since. Among the scores who hoisted the black flag, four names endure above the rest, not just for their fame, but for what they represent in strategy, identity, and influence. Edward Blackbeard Teach was a terror incarnate, not because of his kill count, but because of how he shaped fear. He lit slow-burning fuses in his beard, carried multiple pistols across his chest, and weaponized his image. His flagship, the Queen Anne's Revenge, was less a ship than a symbol, a warning sent across Atlantic waters. Though his actual reign lasted little more than a year, his legend outlived him by centuries. When he was killed in a British ambush in 1718, his decapitated head was paraded on the bowsprit, a final act of theatrical messaging and the end of an era. Bartholomew Black Bart Roberts, by contrast, was methodical. He seized over 400 ships in less than 4 years. Where Teach wielded fear, Roberts wielded organization. He issued detailed pirate codes, standardized fleet operations, and instituted compensation structures for injured crewmen, practices that eerily resemble corporate governance today. He even designed a flag bearing two skulls labeled for Barbados and Martinique, the two colonial governors who had dared defy him. His downfall came in 1722, off the coast of what is now Gabon. A British warship found his fleet and opened fire. Roberts was killed early in the fight, shot in the throat. His empire collapsed almost immediately. His career was short, but his legacy was corporate, expansive, and foundational. Sir Henry Morgan, unlike Roberts or Teach, ended his career not on the gallows, but in government. A Welsh privateer with royal backing, Morgan targeted Spanish strongholds with calculated violence. His raid on Panama in 1671 involved jungle marches, complex logistics, and brutal outcomes. For this, he was knighted, then appointed lieutenant governor of Jamaica. His life straddled the line between outlaw and statesman, foreshadowing how empires often absorbs its own rebels. He wasn't merely a raider, he was an instrument of imperial will. Samuel Black Sam Bellamy, meanwhile, gave piracy a different face. His brief career was defined by principles: equal shares, fair treatment of prisoners, and crew-wide decision-making. Bellamy's Whydah galley patrolled the American coast, disrupting trade with elegance and speed. But it was lost in a sudden storm off Cape Cod in 1717, taking Bellamy and most of his crew with it. His body was never found. Yet in the decades to follow, his reputation grew as a romantic, egalitarian figure, the so-called Robin Hood of the sea. The Golden Age was not shaped by men alone. It was a world of fluid identity where class, race, and gender were bent or broken entirely. Bonny and Mary Read disguised themselves as men to join pirate crews. Both served under Calico Jack Rackham, both fought in open battle, and both confounded the court system in Jamaica after their capture in 1720. Declaring pregnancy to escape execution, they forced colonial judges to confront a truth long ignored. Piracy wasn't just a man's world. It was a refuge for those seeking freedom, regardless of birth, gender, or background. In the Indian Ocean, Olivier Levasseur, known as La Buse, operated with similar ferocity off Madagascar. He forged alliances with Malagasy rulers and built enclaves that blended African and European governance. His rumored treasure has never been found, but his presence shows that piracy was never confined to the Caribbean. It was a global, adaptive enterprise. Then there was Stede Bennet, the so-called gentleman pirate, a man whose life defied every convention of piracy. Born into wealth and privilege, Bonny was a respected landowner and military officer in Barbados before inexplicably abandoning his comfortable life to embrace the brutal and uncertain world of piracy. He purchased a ship with his own fortune, hired a crew, and set sail, not out of desperation or rebellion, but seemingly from a romanticized notion of adventure and escape. The problem, however, was glaring. Bonny had no nautical experience whatsoever. His leadership at sea was marked by indecision, mismanagement, and frequent dependence on others, most notably the infamous Blackbeard, with whom he formed an uneasy alliance. That partnership deteriorated swiftly, leaving Bonnet adrift both figuratively and literally. His command was chaotic, his exploits ill-planned, and his capture inevitable. At his trial, he was not seen as a bold rogue, but as a misguided amateur, humiliated before the very society he once sought to escape. One of the most misunderstood aspects of pirate life was its structure. Far from being lawless, many crews operated under strict articles. These outlined everything: loot distribution, voting rights, compensation for injury, and punishments for theft or cowardice. In many cases, these rules provided more equity and justice than the navies and merchant ships they rebelled against. Pirates developed internal auditing roles. They appointed quartermasters, recorded inventories, and enforced majority rule. What emerged under duress, far from courts or crown, was a system of cooperative governance, not utopian, but functional, and deeply ahead of its time. Their pressure also forced technological change. Merchant ships adopted faster designs. Navies deployed more maneuverable vessels to track pirates through shallow waters. Cartography improved as captains traded charts and mapped hidden inlets. These adaptations rippled through global trade, shaping maritime practice for decades. By the 1720s, the pirate tide began to recede. Empires turned from tolerance to extermination. Naval squadrons hunted pirate enclaves. Governors offered pardons, followed by gallows for those who refused. The Act of Grace in 1717 marked a turning point. Hundreds surrendered. Many more were captured and hanged. Some trials lasted days, others only hours. But these prosecutions had an unexpected effect. They shaped maritime law. Witness testimonies, detailed court records, and procedural innovations became part of the legal scaffolding that now governs international waters. Today's anti-piracy laws, from UNCLOS to modern naval doctrine, owe their origins to the courtrooms of Port Royal and London. The pirate we know today, peg leg, eye patch, buried gold, owes much to fiction. But behind the myth lies a reality far more compelling. Archaeology tells new stories of multiracial crews, shared resources, and decentralized systems. Ships like the Whydah, once buried beneath the sands of Cape Cod, now yield weapons, coins, and personal effects that rewrite what we thought we knew. In a modern light, piracy reveals uncanny parallels. Reputation management, central to Blackbeard's power, now defines marketing and cyber warfare. Decentralized governance, once practiced on the decks of pirate sloops, now lives in DAOs and blockchain networks. And the cat-and-mouse games of empire versus pirate reappear in today's debates on digital sovereignty, private military contractors, and offshore finance. Even in failure, pirates left blueprints, not just for rebellion, but for autonomy, innovation, and adaptive resilience. Long after the cannons fell silent and the black flags were lowered, piracy lived on, not on the seas but in the imagination. By the 19th century, novelists, playwrights, and illustrators began reimagining pirates not as criminals, but as symbols of freedom and anti-authoritarianism. Writers like Robert Louis Stevenson and later filmmakers created the blueprint of the charming rogue, more cape and cutlass than compass and consequence. This romantic vision took hold in global culture, distorting the brutality of actual pirate life, yet preserving its allure. Pirates became avatars of escapism. Dangerous, yes, but free. Untethered from nation, class, or law. Today, the legacy of the Golden Age is caught between commercial nostalgia and critical reevaluation. Museums and scholars now work to correct the record, highlighting the economic roots of piracy, its global networks, and the overlooked voices within it. But the tension remains between the pirate as a marketable image and the pirate as a figure of resistance. The Golden Age of Piracy ended with a tightening grip of the empire. But its lessons endure. Blackbeard taught us the value of image. Black Bart taught us structure. Henry Morgan showed us how rebels become rulers. And Black Sam Bellamy reminded us that leadership can be fair, fast, and doomed all at once. Their stories, like their ships, were built on the edge of the known world. And their legacies still shape how we govern, how we resist, and how we imagine freedom in a world ruled by distant powers. This was not just an age of piracy. It was an age of innovation, an age of defiance, and perhaps an age ahead of its time. If you enjoyed sailing through the stormy seas of history with us, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the past. Share your thoughts in the comments. Was the Golden Age of Piracy a time of lawless chaos or rebellious freedom? And if you want more stories of hidden treasure, legendary captains, and the real lives behind the myths, make sure to hit the bell so you never miss an episode.